A race to have a well-assessed and documented bill with the input of all the stakeholders in the petroleum sector started 13 years ago, with several ups and downs. The delay lingered from the 6th Assembly to the present one, with a determination to have a conclusive bill working together with the executive for the passage of what is now known as the Petroleum Industry Act. That's our focus for this week. You're welcome to Special Report. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Since the idea of a PIB was brought to the fore in year 2000 by the then President Olusegun Obasanjo-led administration, the bill sought to introduce critical changes to the governance, administrative, regulatory and fiscal framework of the Nigerian oil and gas industry in order to strengthen the governing institutions, ensure transparency and attract investment capital, amongst other objectives.
To be implemented in 3 stages over a period of 15 years.
Late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua presented the first draft of the bill to the 6th National Assembly. The bill sought to introduce pertinent changes to the governance, administrative, regulatory and fiscal framework of the Nigerian oil and gas industry in order to ensure transparency, strengthen the governing institutions and attract investment capital, amongst other objectives. For 18 years, the bill was widely contended by independent operating companies, host communities and other stakeholders with a view to ensure that all the issues surrounding the passage are straightened out.
I think the Petroleum Industry Bill of 2012 did not have duplications. It was the one that preceded it in the last 6th National Assembly that we had different versions. So the Petroleum Industry Bill 2012 is one version, which was passed in the twilight of the last Assembly.
There was an introduction of a private member bill before the executive bill, and as soon as the bill came in line with our House rule, which borders on bills on the same subject matter, the 2 bills were actually married. Based on that, the first reading of the bill was taken, the second reading also came up. And the House, in its own wisdom, set up an ad hoc committee to look into the nitty-gritty of the bill. It was a very, very technical bill. I want to admit that. And based on that, a lot of consultants were, taken in respect of, looking at the whole challenges. The bill, because of also sectional and regional interests, had a lot of challenges, based also on the technicalities. You remember vividly the issue of the host community. The host community was a major challenge to the bill itself because the definition of a host community became a very big problem. And after the exercise, there was a major section that borders also on the frontier funds. And like I said, because of some level of sectional interest also, the frontier fund became a very, very big controversial issue. I remember the committee once traveled even out of the country, just to handle the same bill, and coupled with all the challenges and the technicalities, I think they were able to put conclusion to it after almost a year.
In 2012, however, during the administration of President Goodluck Jonathan, a new version of the bill was again presented to the 7th Assembly, setting up a special task force to fast-track the passage of a reworked petroleum industry bill with more than 16 existing laws harmonized and input into the newly drafted bill. July of that year, the provisions of the bill were contended, leading to various versions of the bill, generating a setback to the idea, which led to conflicting interests.
And considering the bill became also another major issue because various regions were very, very upset. And then I take example like the issue of the host community. We mostly from the oil producing areas believing that the area has suffered so much degradation, pollution, environmental hazard, health situation and a host of other issues, felt that, more should be given, to bring the environment back to what it is. And when we saw that the host community was not properly treated as it should be, And the frontier funds were asking for more money. It became a major issue. And you realize that balancing the equation became a very, very big problem.
There is a section in that PIB where it says that the oil companies that are within that host community should pay certain 10% from their profit after tax. But that 10% is also tax deductible. So if it is tax deductible, that means money that is supposed to be taken to the consolidated revenue fund is now going to be shared to the host community. So now instead of having third tier of government, we have now fourth tier of government. That means federal, state, local government, and host community, which is against the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So things of that nature will have to be x-rayed, will have to be sieved.
The Petroleum Industry Bill scaled through in the hands of the members of the 7th House of Representatives, while the bill suffered a setback at the Senate before the 7th Assembly was dissolved.
In passing that bill, we took cognizance of the fact that given the time-tested axiom of power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, we decided to strip the minister of several of such powers and then put some of those powers in the various agencies that are going to be charged with responsibility, so that each agency, there could be inter-agency relationship and there could be checks and balances. And then one curious section of the bill that came to us that we removed was that after all the beautiful things were said about, unbundle NNPC, let everything be done transparently, a clause was inserted in the bill that the president shall, in spite of the provisions of this law, have the discretion to award any acre of any acreage or give out any block, any oil block, in the way he deems fit. But we thought that, look, as legislators, we can't allow this to go. Because the reason why we are where we are today in the running of our petroleum sector is that successive governments, especially heads of government during the military era, have abused the power of managing their God-given resources, oil, to allocate oil wells to their friends, some to their wives. And that is why today, if you look at the records of Nigerians that have access, that are called oil well owners, you will be shocked and wonder, how did they get it? So we decided also to remove that power so that you can make the process competitive. What we have done with the bill is to ensure that we leave access to exploitation and exploration of petroleum products, be it gas or be it crude oil, must be based on your capacity and your ability to meet the conditions that are set.
Soon after the swearing-in ceremony of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration in May 2015, a proposal was raised for passing the Petroleum Industry Bill in various segments owing to its huge size. This gave rise to 4 separate bills, namely Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, Fiscal Regime Bill, Upstream and Midstream Administration Bill, and the Petroleum Host Communities Bill. As a follow-up to this action, 2 years after the Senate passed the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, and in January 2018, the House of Representatives passed the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill.
A bill for an act to provide for the governance and institutional framework for the petroleum industry and for other related matters, 2017, third reading taken. The bill is now read and passed. This is a bill, I believe, not only Nigerians, even our friends and investors in the petroleum sector have been waiting for us to put a framework that will ensure transparency, accountability, and create an enabling environment for the petroleum sector that will be necessary to further stimulate growth in this sector. We hope by what we have done today, again, we'll continue to show the kind of commitment and leadership and our contribution to the development of this country. I'm proud of what you have all done today. We gave this commitment that we'll pass this bill that has not been possible for many years, and we've done it. I hope with this bill, the oil and gas industry will begin to see the new kind of investment that is necessary.
We looked at the bill as it was, and we said it would be better not to take the bill as a whole, to divide it into sections. And the first section, which we believe will make the petroleum industry what we expect it to be in this country today, is what was passed today, that is the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. Everything that has to do with petroleum resources, the governance, is what has been done.
The bill was subsequently unbundled into several segments by the 8th Assembly, aimed at making it easier for the less controversial aspects to have easy passage.
No, it's okay. This is an additional amendment, Mr. Chairman, seated as President. Take it down from 2 to 3% that he recommended. Not more than 5%, not less than 3%. That's my amendment. I need a seconder. Senator Okoyeki.
I rise to second the motion ably made by Senator Manager. Amendment, the additional amendment.
Okay, distinguished colleagues, please. Distinguished colleagues, here is the explanation, my understanding of the amendment being sought. Senator James Manager has come up with an amendment. So if we vote, if you want the amendment to stand, you vote yes. That is amending what we have passed, the amendment brought by Senator Kaita of 3%. If you don't want the amendment, you vote no. Is that clear? And have I captured the essence of your amendment? Okay, so if you want the amendment by Senator James Manager that you change the 3% to not less than 3% and not more than 5%, that is the amendment being sought, then you will vote yes. If you want to retain the 3% as passed already, the amendment brought by Senator Keita, then you vote no. Is that clear? Okay. So those in favor that clause 240 as amended by Senator James Manager, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it.
In September 2020, President Muhammadu Buhari's administration sends a new petroleum industry bill to the National Assembly while the bill passes first reading at the Senate.
The Petroleum Industry Bill, Mr. Speaker, has been a very critical piece of legislation that has taken much of our attention down the history. I could remember, Your Excellency, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, this was a bill that we started right from the 5th Assembly, the 6th Assembly, the 7th Assembly, and the 8th House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, for whatever reasons, this bill had not been able to see the light of the day in those considerations.
This is a responsibility we take seriously and will not evade regardless of whatever objections may arise from any quarters. It is in the best interest of our country that all parties concerned subject themselves to this process in good faith, knowing that this too is an obligation of service to our country.
So what I'm saying here is that if we leave it like this, that downstream in the petroleum industry is left out. And I don't think the intendment, when you decide to bring downstream and midstream together as a commission, then you shouldn't abandon the downstream as far as the petroleum industry is concerned. So this explains my,
The chairman, colleague, the essence here is that the downstream petroleum sector has been fully infrastructure. The essence here is that despite the infrastructure you have in the downstream, if you don't build the midstream infrastructure, you cannot get gas to the downstream. So yes, so it is midstream gas infrastructure fund, not downstream.
With work in progress and collaboration of the legislative arm of government with the executive, on the 1st of July 2021, the 9th Assembly passes the long-awaited Petroleum Industry Bill after considering and adopting 318 clauses of the bill with the following objectives: to create a conducive environment for petroleum operations, enhancing exploration and exploitation of petroleum resources for the benefit of Nigerians, optimizing domestic gas supplies, particularly for power generation and industrial development, establishing a progressive fiscal framework that encourages further investment in the petroleum industry while optimizing the revenue accruing to the government, establishing commercially oriented and profit-driven oil and gas entities, deregulating and liberalizing the downstream petroleum sector, creating efficient and effective regulatory agencies, promoting openness and transparency in the industry, and encouraging the development of Nigerian content.
Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Joint Committee on Petroleum Downstream, Petroleum Upstream and Gas on the Petroleum Industry Bill 2021 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clauses 1 to 31 as recommended, clauses 32 to 33 as amended, clauses 34 to 47 as recommended, clause 48 as amended, clauses 49 to 51 as recommended, clause 52 as amended, clauses 53 to 63 as recommended, clause 64 as amended, clauses 65 to 103 as recommended, clause 104 as amended, clauses 105 to 239 as recommended, clause 240 as amended, clauses 241 to 317 as recommended. Is this interpretation as recommended, short title as recommended, schedule 1 as amended, schedules 2 to 8 as recommended? Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Yes. Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this bill be now read the third time, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for legal, governance, regulatory, and fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, the development of host communities, and for related matters 2021, SB 510, third reading.
A bill for an act to provide legal, governance, regulatory, and fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, the development of host communities, and for related matters 2021, third reading taken, and the bill is passed.
Following the historic action, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, then signed the bill into law.
We are all aware that past administrations have identified the need to further align the industry for global competitiveness, but there was lack of political will to actualize this needed transformation. This lack of progress has stagnated the growth of the industry and the prosperity of our economy. In the first 10 years, Nigeria has lost an estimated $50 billion US worth of investments due to uncertainty created by the non-passage of the PIB. This administration believes that the timely passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill will help our country attract investments across the oil and gas value chain. In view of the value our nation and investors will drive from a stable fiscal framework for the oil and gas industry, our administration has found it necessary to work with the two chambers of the National Assembly to ensure the passage of the PIB. The presidential assent of the Petroleum Industry Bill on the 16th of August 2021 to Petroleum Industry Act 2021 marked the beginning of the journey towards a competitive and resilient petroleum industry that will attract investments to support our economic recovery and growth plan. The Petroleum Industry Act 2021 creates a regulatory environment that will ensure efficiency and accountability, across the oil and the gas value chain and reposition NNPC to a commercially driven national petroleum company that is accountable to the Federation. The Act also provides for a direct benefit framework that will enable sustainable development of host communities. I appeal to the host communities to look carefully at the contents of the bill, which in the implementation will bring real and lasting benefits to them. Furthermore, the Act provides for deliberate end to gas flaring, which will facilitate the attainment of Nigerian national determined contributions of the Paris Agreement through a funding mechanism to support gas flare out projects in host communities. Similarly, it acknowledges global energy transition and made necessary provisions for NNPC to invest in renewable energy.
The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timothy Silva, speaks on steps taken by the present administration.
It actually creates the foundation, for now, a stable foundation for the growth of the oil industry. And before now, what was obtainable was that there was no certainty in the sector because the foundation was not clear. But today we have a law, we have a PIA that at least sets a good platform, a very solid foundation for growth of the sector, and the president is quite happy about it. So what he mentioned to me is that we must work very quickly to ensure that we create a roadmap for the implementation of this PIB.
Now that a 13-year-old battle seems to have been won, what is next is the implementation stage.
Of course, the PIA goes beyond NNPC. There are a lot of parts in the PIA that are involved. The Upstream Regulatory Commission is involved. The Midstream and the Downstream Regulatory Authority are involved. And the whole of the PIB, the implementation of the whole of the PIB, we are given 12 months to achieve that. But for the NNPC, the provision of the law is that within 6 months, the new NNPC should be incorporated.
And this will also show the extent of inclusiveness for all stakeholders. This passage, no doubt, brings to an end a journey of 13 years. With the inauguration of the Takeoff Committee, it sets the stage for the implementation to test run this act. That special report today. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Thank you for watching.